My dear 11th class economics students, Assalamu alaikum. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss the state of Indian economy on the eve of independence. Students, this is the first topic of the first chapter of your paper B. Indian economy on the eve of independence deals with the economy of India as we inherited it from the Britishers in 1947. That is, it describes the status of the economy of India when Britishers left India in 1947. Students, here we have to address two basic questions. First, was Indian economy a stagnant or vibrant economy on the eve of independence? And second, was it a backward or developing economy at that time? In order to address these two basic questions, we have to focus on the state of Indian agricultural and industrial sectors on the eve of independence, the state of India's foreign trade during the British rule, and also on the India's occupational structure, infrastructure, and demographic profile on the eve of independence. So, these subtopics to be covered under this main topic are the level of economic development under the British rule in India, the state of India's agricultural sector, the state of India's industrial sector, India's foreign trade during British rule, demographic condition of India, occupational structure of India, and infrastructure of India on the eve of independence. Let us first discuss the level of economic development during British rule. Students, throughout the British rule, Indian economy experienced a very low level of economic development. Although before British rule, India was a very independent, self-reliant and prosperous economy, it was known for its developed handicraft industries and the prominent handicraft industries which gave prime place to India in the world market before British rule were cotton and silk textiles, metal industries, precious stone work, gold and silver jewelry, etc. But towards the end of the British rule, Indian economy was totally exhausted. Students, Britishers during their rule in India framed such policies that protected and promoted the economic interests of their own country. The interests of the Indian economy were completely ignored. Such policies affected Indian economy very adversely, like those policies brought structural changes in the Indian economy by transforming it to a supplier of raw materials and consumer of finished products from Britain. That is, the British policies transformed India's agricultural sector, which was a prominent sector of India before British rule, to a mere supplier of raw materials for the British industries. Students, this not only affected the production of agricultural sector, but also ruined the small manufacturing units of India like handicrafts and small cotton industries, as these units faced a stiff competition from the British machine-made products. Students, as per some researchers, Indian economy during the first half of the 19th century grew at less than 2%, and the growth rate of per capita output, that's average output, was only 0.5% during that period. So, from this, we can easily say that the economic development of India during the British rule was very low. Now, coming to the national income estimates during British rule, students during the pre-independence period, national income accounts were not prepared. The British government never made sincere efforts, or we can say attempts, to estimate India's national income, or we can say gross domestic product and per capita income. And thus, no official estimates of the national income of India are available for the British period. However, some individual attempts were made to measure India's incomes, but those attempts tragically failed due to inconsistency, lack of expertise, and inaccuracy. Students, the first estimates of the national income were provided by Dada Bhai Nauroji for 1867 to 1868 in his work Poverty and Un-British Rule in India. Students, according to Dada Bhai Nauroji, the national income of British India in the year 1967 to 68 was rupees 340 crores. Apart from Dada Bhai Nauroji, William Digby, Friendly Shiras, R.C. Desai, V.K.R.V. Rao, and Monu Mukherjee also provided their estimates of India's national income and per capita income for different years in the last quarter of the 19th century and the first decade of the 20th century. However, the statistical basis of these estimates was quite weak. In the context of measuring India's national income during British period, the contribution of V.K.R.V. Rao and Dadabhai Nauroji are considered very significant. Now, coming to the state of Indian agricultural sector on the eve of independence, students, India's economy under the British rule remained fundamentally agrarian. At the time of independence, almost 85% of the country's population lived in villages where livelihood completely dependent on agricultural sector. In spite of such a large segment of the population being dependent of agriculture, this sector either directly or indirectly faced stagnation and constant deterioration during British rule. Students, on the eve of independence, India's agricultural sector exhibited three principal characteristics which pointed to its backwardness and stagnation. First is the low level of productivity in agricultural sector during British period. It means that during British rule, the output per hectare of land was extremely low. This situation led to a very low yield of output irrespective of the large cultivation area. Before independence, the total output of Indian agricultural sector was just 0.5% per annum. The second characteristic of Indian agricultural sector on the eve of independence was that agriculture showed a high degree of vulnerability because it was excessively dependent upon rainfall. Good rainfall implied good output, while poor rainfall implied poor output. Under the British rule, no efforts were made to develop permanent means of irrigation facilities for farmers like wells, canals, etc. And lastly, during British rule, agriculture was characterized by a wedge between owners of the soil on the one hand and tillers of the soil on the other. Students, owners of the soil, were only crop sharers, that is, they shared the output produced, but they never shared the cost of output. The tillers of the soil, irrespective of their hard work, were given barely enough for their subsistence. Owners were only interested in maximizing their share of output. They were never committed to prosperity of their agricultural land. Hence, backwardness and stagnation of agriculture was quite obvious consequence. The main causes explaining backwardness and stagnation of Indian agriculture during British rule are land revenue settlement under the British rule and forced commercialization of agriculture by the British government. Let us first discuss the land revenue system under British rule. Students, the British government in India invented a unique system of land revenue by setting up the triangular relationship among the government, the owners of the soil, and the tillers of the soil. This system was popularly known as Zamindari system of land revenue. Besides Zamindari system, Mahalwari and Raitwari system of land revenue were also introduced by the British government during their rule in India. Students, in the Zamindari system, Zamindars or the landlords were the owners of the land. They were required to pay very high revenue called Lagan to the British government, which they used to collect from the peasants, or we can say tillers of the soil. The zamindars were absolutely free to extract as much from the tillers of the soil as they could. They were mainly concerned with extracting high revenues from the peasants, but they never took any steps to improve the productivity of their agricultural land. This eventually resulted in low agricultural productivity and production. Now, coming to another reason for backwardness and stagnation of agriculture during British period, which is commercialization of agriculture. Students, commercialization of agriculture means production of crops for the sale in the market rather than for self-consumption. Initially, before the British rule, the farmers in India were practicing conventional subsistence farming, that is, they used to grow crops like rice and wheat for their own consumption. But during British rule, in order to feed British industries with cheap raw materials, the Indian farmers were forced to grow commercial, or we can say cash crops instead of food crops. Students, the British industries were always interested or they were always in the need of raw materials like cotton, indigo, jute, groundnut, sugarcane, etc., to keep their factories running. Like indigo was required by the textile industry in Britain for dyeing of the textile. By offering high prices, the Indian peasants were attracted to production of commercial crops instead of food crops. This commercialization of agriculture not only increased the burden of high revenues on the poor peasants, but also led India to face shortage of food grains. As a result, Indian agriculture remained backward and stagnant. Other factors responsible for backwardness and stagnation of agricultural sector during British rule were lack of resources, lack of irrigation facilities, insignificant use of fertilizers, use of inferior quality of seeds, and less use of modern technology. Such factors further exaggerated the agricultural performance, lowered the agricultural productivity, and made it more vulnerable. So, to conclude, we can say that on the eve of independence, agricultural sector of Indian economy was absolutely backward, stagnant, and non-vibrant. The state of other sectors of Indian economy on the eve of independence, like industrial sector, foreign trade, occupational structure of India, etc., will be discussed in our coming lectures. Thank you.